this is something that you all hear, but as far as standards go, people love putting their boot in, getting stuck in, they like to complain about them. And I guess one of the biggest complaints people say is that they're reactive, not proactive. But there is one area in this edition where it seems to be quite proactive, and that is electric vehicles. So there has been the introduction for some requirements around EV charging. So what exactly is included, and why was that important now when the market's still quite young?
That was in our scope statement that we made up front, that was seen as something we've got to consider. New Zealand said that we want to make it mandatory to have charging and all that sort of stuff. That was early on. What we felt was that there was a need to tell people about EV, electric vehicles. Yes, early days, and I don't know what the percentage of cars is now. I think probably 1% if you're lucky, still in Australia.
Less than 1.
But now, as you can see, they're building the highway between Sydney and, or was it Brisbane and Cairns. They call it the electric vehicle highway or something. And they're going to put charging stations and all that in there. So what we were thinking about 8 years ago or 9 years ago is sort of coming to fruition. But all we've done is we've provided information. What does an electric vehicle do? How is it charged? What are the different modes of charging? What sort of control and protection we can put in place? But only as information, not as a mandatory requirement. So for an Australian perspective, we've only ever looked at it as information to help the installer because it is so new. New Zealand took another approach that they wanted to put information in, and they put it actually into section 7 for special installations, and they were trying to be a bit more prescriptive about what has to happen with electric vehicle charging. It's so early in Australia, it's difficult to do that. And we were always arguing again to them to say, well, it's too early to be prescriptive. And so I think we've done the right thing. We've been in front of the technology, and I think we've been proven to be right now. Even though the uptake of the vehicle isn't so great, certainly charging stations go into every council area. They're going into car parks now. As I said, they're starting to build them on highways, putting in those charge stations. So I can see that we're going to have to expand all that and probably bring it into the guts of the book at the end of the day. But I think it's been a great move for us to keep ahead of the game for a change.
It was a really interesting presentation we had from the Electric Vehicle Association about the impact of 20 people turning up on their Tesla Club run and everybody wanting to charge at once, just how much load that dumps on the installation if everyone's plugged in straight away. It's a significant imposition.
And it's interesting that the Electric Vehicles Owners Association, and there's a couple of various associations related to that now in Australia, they actually came to us and they gave us a rundown. We'd actually got some things wrong in our information, so we're fixing that in Amendment 1. But we've actually started the dialogue now. So as we go on, they're going to, for the revision, they will have a big say in what goes into the book, what they need realistically, rather than trying to think about how it should be, realistically how it should go.
Yeah, and New Zealand has actually rolled out a complete charging network all over the country, and they have a schedule to get a penetration of electric vehicles at a much higher rate than Australia, because they want to use their renewable energy to be able to charge electric vehicles and reduce the carbon generation from burning fossil fuels.
So if we looked at section 4 again, one of the big changes is the inclusion of isolation requirements for gas appliances. So what has been introduced in relation to gas appliances and why?
That came about because there's another committee that actually works with gas and how you would do the installation. So the installation rules for gas, they've just updated and they're doing an amendment now. So they've been providing us a lot of information about those, where you should be putting electrical devices that may cause an arc or whatever, around gas bottles and gas terminations and all that sort of stuff. So that all came from the gas installation people. So it wasn't anything that we changed because we particularly wanted to, but we had to keep up to speed.
Yeah, so they identified that you needed to switch both the active and the neutral because there can be a voltage between neutral and earth, and that's enough to cause a spark, and if there's gas that can cause an explosion. So they wanted the double pole isolation. So when their gas fitters come in to work on a gas stove, they're not at risk from an electric ignition source from that. So yeah, that's where the double pole switching came from. It was driven by the requirement for the gas installers.
Which actually works when you just unplug the...
Yeah, you can just unplug. You don't have to have a double pole switch. Provided you've got a socket outlet, that's isolation. Because
isolate
the unit. So you can have a single pole switch on your socket outlet, but unplug it. And so they'll be teaching their gas installers make sure you unplug, because all the gas cooktops have igniters and things like that on them, so they are KOing. So that's why they do that.
One of the other inclusions in this version of the wiring rules, and it's quite a bit different from everything else, and that is the differentiation between emergency and non-emergency lifts, which I guess is something a lot of people don't think about. But what's changed there? What's been included, and I guess why was it included in this version?
This another emotive topic for the committee, I can tell you. We did a lot of research way back when about what was deemed an emergency lift, and so we have a working group in Victoria that went and contacted the fireys and said, tell us about how do we work out what's an emergency lift? How do we do that? So from a wiring rules perspective, we've always deemed a lift to be an emergency, by somewhere where if there's a fire, like in this building, the fireys want to use the lifts, not general people. That's an emergency lift, where you need to fire protect all your cable buzzways and your switch rooms and all that sort of stuff. But we've had in bigger residential installations, people are getting lazier and lazier, I guess, and they don't want to walk upstairs now. So they just drop a lift into a 2-level home or 1-level home. And we were trying to work out where that fitted. And the fireys actually came back to us and gave us a lot of information, and the Lift Association as well, to say, well, that is not an emergency lift. So we went, well, emergency lifts are our only information, so that means you've got to fire protect everything. But there are these other lifts which are just a piece of electrical equipment. So what we had to do was actually make that definition, put that into section 4, into general electrical equipment, and then make a statement, this is not fire protected, this is what you do to make your connection. If you've got a motor roomless lift, this is what you have to do. And that's what it was all about. So that took us quite a while to establish all that. And the only way we could do it was actually make a demarcation, emergency, normal conveyancing basically. So has its other benefits, because I think it's going to happen more and more in the residential, and for disabled people to get out of buildings and instead of having to be carried downstairs and stuff. So it's got its place, and I think we come up with the right answer at the end of the day.